Hey there, it's Christian from 7 Gamer Network, and I'm sat at the computer. I'm going to use TTS because I wanted to talk to you guys about Poe-Maz. I wanted to do a little tutorial. I know there are still new players to the game. I know there are people who perhaps just don't get to play much of, they don't have a very competitive scene around them maybe, and they haven't seen Poe-Maz, they haven't seen it in action, and they don't really necessarily understand, well, how does it work, why is it so powerful? And so I wanted to make a video to help you guys just to very simply understand the core mechanic of the deck, the core cheat of the deck, and how that is very, very powerful, and then how there's lots of other elements that make it a very powerful deck, and maybe then also we'll work out a couple of ways in which you can see to sort of exploit it and try and beat it. There aren't many. It's a great deck. Okay, so let's go to our TTS here, and so you can see I've set up the game just a fairly straightforward setup, so as if we've just done our mulligan, and we've got our resources. We're playing with Emperor's Throne Room, and we're ready to go. Now, what I'll do is I'll play out a series of actions. Just move these a little bit more out of the way. I'll play out a series of actions. We're not playing against an opponent here. It's just more so you can actually see how that core mechanic of Poe-Maz works. Now, most typically, the first action will be to activate Poe. So we roll Poe in, and we'll see what his dice get. He gets a 1 disrupt and 2 ranged. Now, why Poe-Maz is so powerful is the interplay between the two abilities on the characters. Now on Poe, let's just read that out. It's the special is discard a card from your hand to resolve one of the sides of its die if able. Then if it was a vehicle card, you may pay its cost to play it from your discard pile. Just so you know, we don't really do that hardly ever in this deck. And then Maz's ability is after you activate this character, you may resolve up to 2 of your dice. Now, that means that we've got a character with 2 dice in this deck, with a very powerful special, and then we've got Maz, who has got this, you may resolve up to 2 of your dice with 2 focus. And it's really the core mechanic is that we, on our next action, will roll out Maz. We are very likely to see some focus. And then what will happen is we then resolve Maz's ability. So we will, let's just say, for example here, we will focus clearly one of Poe's die to the special side. Oops, that's 5. We activate his special, and then we're going to pick a card from our hand to do the damage with. Now this deck is built with lots of very damagey cards, so cards with big damage sides on. So for instance, we could activate now, we could go with Thermal Detonator. The Thermal Detonator, we could activate the special side from it, deal 3 damage to each of an opponent's characters. Insanity, straight from hand. So if you're playing against a 2 character deck, well, that's 6 damage you've just done on the second action. Because that's all you did. You've activated Poe, you activated Maz. It didn't really matter what Poe rolled, because your chances are that with Maz, you're going to roll the focus, and you're going to then hit the special. And that's 6 damage there. If you play a 3 character deck, he's just done 9 damage to you at the end of the second activation. Okay, so that's an example. So Thermal Detonator is very good. He might also resolve a Millennium Falcon, which has got a 4 damage side on it, look. So he could stick 4 damage straight into or we could, if we're playing with it, stick 4 damage straight into a particular character. Maybe we know there's one we really want to focus upon. So if we don't have Thermal Detonator, we've got something like Millennium Falcon. But this is the core mechanic. So if you rolled a special with Poe, then when Maz activates, you roll your focus perhaps. Well, you could, resolving 2 dice, you could still do this one, and then you could focus this Poe's other dice to his special, so that your next activation you get to do another one. And then of course you could have done Thermal Detonator first, done 6 damage, then you do Millennium Falcon, that's 10 damage after 3 activations. So you can start to see how that is immensely powerful. Now, so you're starting to think, well, hang on a second, if really all the damage is coming out of Poe's dice, well, I just need to be able to get rid of Poe's dice or do something with Poe's dice. Well, that's true, and that is generally one of the best ways to deal with this deck. If you can get rid of Poe's dice, it's all about removal of Poe's dice. So a couple of things that the Poe-Maz deck then does to sort of help even with that is that it will run things like Emperor's Throne Room, so that even if let's say you don't hit the you don't hit either of the specials when you do your initial roll, none of the specials get hit. You roll out Maz, she rolls this, and you do the ability, okay, and you use that to turn that to a special, and you go for 6 damage, okay. So on your next action, then you don't even need to worry about, sort of, you've got this. Yes, you could resolve that Poe die for 3 damage, absolutely, but you might, for some reason, have resources. You might have been disrupted. Whatever, you actually don't care, because all you're going to do on your next action is you say, well, I don't mind missing out on 1 resource. I'm going to claim, turn one of your dice aside showing a special ability, then you may resolve it. And well, I'll have another Poe special, please, thank you very much. Take 4 damage to a character who's already taken 3. So from that thermal detonator that you did on the previous action. So you can do in 3 activations, you can have dished out 10 damage and claimed a battlefield, with both of your characters having activated. Really very, very powerful. It can go faster because, of course, we've got cards like Fast Hands. So let's say you roll out you roll out Poe here. Oh, look at that, perfect. Okay, so I'll go Fast Hands, do the special, and I'll resolve my thermal detonator. My next action, I'll roll out Maz. Now, does she hit the focus? Do you know what? She doesn't. Okay, that's slightly unfortunate. Maybe I'll do the 2. I don't really want to because I've still got the Millennium Falcon in here. Now, this is your chance to stretch. This is how you play against this deck. If they haven't rolled that, you need to remove this dice. This is the main thing to remove, okay? Just get rid of it however you can. That die needs to go. But it doesn't matter on the next activation, unless you really want to get the most out of this. He's probably just going to claim. He's going to do this, and he's going to deal 4 damage. Because he doesn't even need to worry about, did he roll the focus? It's nice if he rolls the focus, because it's happening at cheat speed, and it doesn't give the opponent then a chance to remove it. We had that chance to remove it, but if you don't, he's going to Emperor's Throne Room it, and still get the special off. So, another quite powerful battlefield, I think, and probably seeing more of this battlefield being run in Poe-Maz now, is the old Frozen Wastes from the starter set. Remove a character die. And that's strong because generally what you'll find, of course, is that this deck's going to go really fast. Your opponent's maybe just rolled out some characters, and when we're playing in, maybe you're playing against a Poe-Maz and it ends up going a bit slower, or you're playing Vader Raider or Palp or any of these, Luke Ray or any other decks that have got these big character dice in. If you can hit the Frozen Wastes when he does his thing, well, you're going to remove one of their die as well, and that's going to reduce the amount of incoming damage. So this is another very, very good battlefield to run, and so you need to be aware of how that's working. But it doesn't stop there. I said it goes a bit faster because we've got Fast Hands. Well, imagine if we then play Hit and Run. This is where it gets really silly, because it's got Ambush. You activate one of your red characters. So how this plays out? Perhaps the first action is of the round is he plays out a Fast Hands. The next action is he then does a Hit and Run. He activates one of his red characters. He's going to roll the dice. Okay, so he Fast Hands that. Now we've still got another action. So at this point, he then plays out and activates Maz. Maz rolls the focus. He's going to do that. We're going to take it to another special, and we've got another special going on. So what happened there is the first action he played out fast hands, and then the next action was activating both of his characters and hitting both specials on the 2 Poe dice, resulting in being the Thermal Detonator and the Millennium Falcon. So by the end of his second activation, again, he's done 10 damage, and the big thing is it was all cheated out. You couldn't do anything about it. Once that hit and run came down, everything that then happened was just all in his own time, all cheating out, nothing, because he fast hands the 1, and then of course activated Maz. She gets to resolve 2 dice, focused the other Poe die into that special, bang, 2 specials gone. This is what makes this deck stupidly strong, stupidly good, and why a lot of people are actually getting a bit annoyed about it. Sometimes this is a deck that just rolls like that. Now of course, if that's the first turn you face, fast hands into a hit and run where he ends up getting both of the specials off against you, you're gonna feel seriously aggrieved when there's, I don't know, 7, 8 damage on one of your characters, or if you're playing a 3 character deck and he has both Thermal Detonators in hand at the start and you get dealt 12 damage, you're going to be angry, of course. But that doesn't happen all that much, getting both Thermal Detonators. However, getting both specials off will happen quite a lot. And I think it's really not unusual to expect this deck to be dishing out between 6 to 8 damage every round, really quite consistently. So one of the ways in which you can deal with that amount of damage incoming is to have lots of shields. If you've got lots of shields, then you're much more likely to be mitigating that damage, because one thing this deck doesn't do is it doesn't put out unblockable damage, thankfully. So if you're able to stick some shields onto your characters, now of course you want to do that first round. If they get the battlefield, they're going to be going first. And one of the things, of course, that makes this deck, I think, extra good is the fact that it also plays defensive position. This deck's usually going to control the battlefield, so it shouldn't be an issue. Remove all of an opponent's dice showing a value of 2 or higher. So those kind of big dice where you're hoping to get, you know, the big shields out off your Qui-Gons or your personal shields or things like that, where you're hoping to just load up shields across your characters, things like that can be really difficult to deal with. Maybe you are thinking, right, well, what I've got to do then is I've just got to race Poe-Maz. You roll out your character dice, he hits you with a defensive position and then a Frozen Wastes and removes all of your stuff. I mean, this is where the mitigation becomes very, very good as well. Now, because everything that we just did there, I've got to point out as well, we did everything. We dealt the 10 damage, the 12 damage, or whatever it is, the stupid amount of damage that we get out. We've still got 2 resources. It didn't cost us any money. Really insane. So the next turn, we've got 4 resources. And that means that cards like this become really good. Planetary Uprising, it costs 2 resources. It's fine. We often quite frequently have the money with Poe-Maz to play this. So after you claim the battlefield, force an opponent to deal 2 damage to characters distributed as they wish. This feels like the almost a straw that broke the camel's back. When you've just seen how the deck can do 8, 9, 10 plus damage in the first round, and it's undealable with, you can't remove it, you can't stop it, because they have the hit and they have the hit and run in their first hand, or they've got the fast hands going off. The fact that they can then drop a Planetary Uprising, meaning that of course when they do their claim, and they're going to do their claim, and they're going to do their claim quite early, they're also going to do another 2 damage. Now, I mean, you're sort of distributing it where you want to, so I'd suggest, you know, you're going to use it up on shielded characters and things like that. But they've also just dealt 8 damage. Now they're dealing 10. They dealt you 10 damage. They're dealing 12 now because of Planetary Uprising. And there are a large number of games where they will have 2 of these in. Okay, so let's say we've got 2 of those on the board. It's later in the game now. It's later in the game. It's the next round. Okay, and let's simulate a little action here, and we'll get ourselves another. Let's get ourselves another upgrade to have in hand. Okay. Or let's just say this is our hand again. But we've been able to get both planetary uprisings out. I mean, let's just have a look at how this could potentially play out this turn, okay? So first action is they're going to hit and run. They're going to roll this. Let's see what we roll. This could be worst case scenario, this could be best case scenario. Okay, so kind of decide whether we want to fast hands. Do you know what? Maybe we've got one of their characters near death already. So you know what, we'll do it. We'll hit that. So we'll just hit them for 2 extra damage there. Oh, sorry, we had the this in, didn't we? Okay, so now I've got another action because it's ambush. Well, look what I could do in this situation. All I did was I just played hit and run, and I did 2 damage. That was quite nice. Could have been a special that I used a fast hands on. My next action now could be, I'm going to claim Emperor's Throne Room. I'm going to resolve the special on this. I'm going to play Thermal Detonator. I'm going to do 6 damage to your 2 characters. I kill the one that had taken a bit of damage and I'd put 2 on because that's 5. Maybe they'd already taken 3 damage. They've just died. But I've just claimed this. So that's an extra 4 damage going off now onto the character that is left after we finished off the other one by doing 5 damage plus whatever had been on it. I mean, you can see how I don't care about Maz when I can do the 2 damage on the Poe dice plus the 3 damage off the detonator to the one character, the 3 damage off the detonator to the other character, so we're at 8. And then, of course, I'm claiming on that to make that special go off and get an extra 4 damage. In one activation, I just did 11 damage. Amazing. And kind of a bit off the scale, really. And this is where I think the Planetary Uprising is the straw that broke the camel's back with this deck. Because it's not like it does these terrible turns and they're really painful, but they never really happen again. It can do this round after round after round. It doesn't cost anything to do your special. You've got the cards in your deck, the thermal detonators, the U-wings, the rocket launchers. You've got ample stuff to fuel Poe's ability, and then of course you've got the old Planetary Uprising making very much the most of it. And this is so. Hopefully you found this helpful. Hopefully you now understand the mechanics of how this deck really works, because it's fairly simple. It's fairly straightforward. It's very, very consistent, and it is scary the amount of damage it puts out. And I think if you're ever building a competitive deck, what I'd suggest you do is test it against Poe-Maz, because I still think that until there's a new set of cards in the meta, this feels like the most consistent, the most powerful deck. Does it lose? Of course it does. Does it lose if it's played by a bad player? Well, of course. But I don't think the skill cap on this deck is very high, and I think probably one of the drawbacks to the deck is the getting the cards. You know, Poe is legendary. You need thermal detonators. You need U-wings. You need rocket launchers. You know, you need some expensive legendaries in the deck, Millennium Falcons or launch bays, to really make the difference and make it a quality deck. So it is quite an expensive deck to put together, which is why you might not see it in your meta if it's maybe a slightly less competitive meta. The other thing is as well, just to point out that this possibly isn't a fun deck to play against. Like, I would never play this in a casual setting. So if you are a newer player, and let's say you've gone for it and bought loads and loads of cards, and you do have access to this card pool, if you're trying to get mates into Destiny if this is still all new and all really exciting, don't rock up with this deck. Really don't. You'll feel amazing and you'll have an amazing time playing it. Everyone else will think this game is stupid. Because many of us who are competitive players and who really love the game actually find this a slightly negative play experience. When so much damage can be applied to you, as I've just shown, without any chance to deal with it or to mitigate it, that is a bit sucky. And I think you'll find that this is some of the teething problems that early games will have. We're still early in this set. Still early in the life of Destiny, and so this is just possibly something that didn't quite get play tested enough, and I don't think we'll see decks that are quite so stupidly powerful once we get future sets coming out. So if you like feeling like you're cheating and playing all the time, well then now's your time to enjoy it, because I don't think decks this crazy will be around for very long. Anyway, that's Poe-Maz and how to play with it, and how to play against it to some extent, but fundamentally how it works. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you did and you want more of this stuff and more help and things like that, then I've got a Patreon channel, and it'd be great to have you in there. We've got a really cool little community where we're always chatting about Destiny and decks that we're working on and cool ideas and so on and so forth. And if you are wanting to learn more about competitive style Destiny, then swdestiny.com is a brilliant website to go to, with loads of great articles, lots of other really good content providers on there, like Tiny, and there's podcasts like the Destiny Council, and of course the Knights of Ren, absolutely one of my favourite podcasts, with loads and loads of really great Destiny content on there, mostly with a competitive mindset to it. So yeah, go check those out if you haven't already. But until next time, keep enjoying Destiny.